All right, guys, today we're going to be doing lesson 8-7, okay? We're going to be factoring trinomials, but what we're going to do now is we're going to stick a number out front other than a 1, okay? So if we kind of go down here, remember we talked in class about that we don't really have a value of A. A is just 1 here in front, okay? So now we're going to look at what happens when there's a number. And I'm not talking about a nice, pretty, perfect square that we can square root, okay? So let's go ahead and review this first. Okay, remember, factoring is just unfoiling things. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and FOIL this out. And I'm going to get 6x squared plus 10x minus 3x minus 5. Okay, again, combine the middles. And I'm going to get 6x squared plus 7x minus 5. So now what I'm talking about here is when I look at this problem, we cannot square root the 6. We cannot square root the 5. We cannot square root the 5, okay? So we know that it's factorable, though. We can't say it's prime because we know it's factorable because here's the answer right here. So what do we do when there's not a 1 out front and we can't square root? That's what we're going to be looking at today. All right, so let's go down here and we're going to kind of follow this little key here. Ask yourself, now I want to make it really clear to us, we are talking about trinomials. Okay, so the first thing you're going to ask yourself, obviously, and I didn't put it kind of down here at the end, but GCF, oops, that's not my highlighter. That didn't work out so well. Let's try that again. GCF first, okay? No matter what, you want to pull a GCF. I promise you, it'll make your problem so much easier when we're doing this, okay? So now, you still want to look for, is it a perfect square, or does it have this 1 out front, okay? If it does, you want to do those, okay? Because that's going to be quicker, easier. But if not, you're going to use the guess and check method, okay? And it's exactly how it sounds. You are going to guess factors until you find something that works, okay? All right, so let's take a look here at number 1. So on number 1, until you get kind of good at this and you kind of start seeing maybe some patterns or you get some ideas, be systematic about it, okay? So what we're going to do is, just like when there was a 1 out front, we found factors of 4. So remember how we made our list? Oops, made our list. 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. And we found, does it equal the middle? Okay. Well, we're going to do that, except for we also now have to do out front 1 times 7. And now we're going to see, can we get both of them to equal the middle? Okay. And what I mean by this is I'm going to go ahead and set up my factors. Okay. My groupings. And you are going to place, just like when we square rooted things, you're going to place this guy, the 1 and 7. You're going to place it in the front, okay? And you have to pick one of these two guys over here. Pick either one, doesn't matter. I'm going to start with the 1 and 4, and I'm going to put those out back because they're on the back side, okay? So what I mean by this, let's take a look here. All right, so I'm going to start with 1x, and I'm going to put the 7x right here. And then I'm going to start with, like I said, the 1 and the 4, so I'm going to put plus 1 plus 4, okay? So now I'm going to FOIL it out here and see if I get the right answer. 7x squared plus 4x plus 7x plus 4. Unfortunately, that's going to give us 11x. This is not our solution, okay? So now I'm going to try another one. Now I'm only going to change one thing at a time. So I'm going to leave the 1x and the 7x out front. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip-flop the 4 and the 1. Okay, so as you can imagine, there's lots of different combinations that can happen on these kind of problems. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to FOIL this, and let's see if this works. So I get 7x squared plus 1x plus 28x and plus 4. Oh my goodness, looky there, we got lucky. 1 plus 28 is 29, which is what we needed right here. So these two gave me my answer. So this guy right here is my solution, because when I FOILed it out, it gave me the right answer. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at the next one here. Okay, so again, I can't square root. I don't have a 1 out front. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a list of my factors. So I'm going to have 1 and 5, 1 and 6, and 2 and 3. Okay, so I'm going to set up my brackets. Again, we have all positive, so that part's nice. And I'm going to start again with the 1, x, 5x, and now I have that second variable there, so I'm going to put a plus 1y and a plus 6y. Okay, so now we're going to start foiling this out, and I'm going to get 5x squared plus 6xy plus 5xy, and then plus 6y squared. So now if I look at this, this is not going to work. Now, one of the things you may kind of start catching on here is that if you're thinking about FOIL, and if our focus is the middle, if we're thinking about FOIL, we can really skip the F and the L part and just do outer and inner and see if we get that middle term. So that is a way to kind of shortcut and make this process a little faster once you for sure know that you've got the outside's good, okay? So what I mean by that is we already know that this guy does not work, so he's out. And so since I said I like to go through it in a nice systematic fashion so I don't skip over anything, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and leave the 1x and the 5x here, right? And now I'm going to switch and I'm going to put 6y, and then I'm going to move the 1y over, okay? So again, all I did was I'm going to take this guy right here and this guy right here, and I just flip-flopped them. I left everything else the same. So now again, like I said, you can just quicken this up a little bit and see 1xy in the middle plus 30xy is not going to get us 13. So we know that this guy's out. Okay, so again, I'm just working that middle trying to get to this 13xy. All right, so we have to try the next one. Okay, so now I'm finally going to need to adjust my front numbers here. Okay, so I'm going to turn this I'm going to leave the front numbers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now, let's go ahead and kind of move over to the 2 and 3 and see if we can get anything to work there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a plus 2y and a plus 3y. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start foiling that out. Again, I'm just going to do outside, inside, just to see if the middle works. So here I get 3xy and I get a 10xy. Well, that's looking pretty dang good. So now do double check your first, make sure you got everything right. So I got 5x squared, looks pretty good. Do your last, and it's plus 6y squared. Yep, so this is looking awesome. So this guy right here is going to be your answer. X squared plus 2y times 5x plus 3y. Okay, all right. Okay, so now we've got to look at what happens now that we have positive, but we have a negative in the middle. Okay, so if we're thinking about that, hopefully we understand that we would have to take a negative, right, number times a negative number to get a negative here. Okay, that'll give us this positive 20, but it'll give us our negative 17 that we're looking for. Okay, all right. So what we're going to do, again, I'm going to kind of erase this. Let's make our list. All right. So the list of 3 would be 1 times 3. And then the list for 20 would be 1 times 20, 2 times 10, and 4 times 5. Yep, and that's just kind of brutal. All right. So now, if you've got an inkling about maybe how to get a 17 out of that, go for it. I know by kind of looking at this, I know that I've got a 3 like times 4, and then if I add a 5 in there, that might give me kind of a 17 route. So I'm going to go ahead and try this guy with this guy first. And if it doesn't work, then we go back and find some other things. But I kind of feel like that might work for us. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So again, I've got 1x and 3x. Now, I'm going to have to make these guys negative because I have a negative 17 in the middle. So I've got a negative 4 and a negative 5. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and FOIL it out. Check to see if I got it right. 3x squared minus 5x minus 12x plus 20. Holy cow, I got it right on the first one. Isn't that exciting? So this right here gives me a negative 17, and this is my answer right there. Okay, so again, if you kind of see something where you think you might be able to multiply and then add something on, I'd try it first. Okay, and again, that's just going to come with practice. That's not something a lot of you are going to see right away, and it's okay. Now, why we pull GCFs? Here's a prime example. If you do not pull out a 5 here, you're going to be stuck with 1 times 10 and 2 times 5 on this guy, 1 times 30, 2 times 15, and 5 times 6 on this guy. By pulling out that 5, pulling out that GCF, I just cut my possibilities in half, okay? So I'm going to pull out that 5 and get 2y squared minus 7y plus 6, okay? So now all of a sudden, we'll leave that 5 out front. We'll deal with him later. I've got possibilities of 1 times 2, 1 times 6, and 2 times 3. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead here. Y, 2y. Okay, and I'm going to start with the first one. I'm going to put a plus 1 and a plus 6 here and just kind of see how it goes. All right, again, shortcut it. Just do the outer inner and see if it works. So 6y. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I wasn't paying attention to my negatives. This is not going to work, is it? If I get 6y and I add in 2y, that's definitely not going to give me anything negative, okay? So I wasn't paying attention to my signs. So let's backtrack here for a second and erase. So we're going to have to make these guys negative, right? So let's change these over to negatives. Okay, so now when I do that, I get a -6 and a -2. So it's still not going to work out right, okay? So then we have to just try something else. Okay, so we're going to try something else. Now, something I want to point out to you, though, is you guys look here. Do you see how you have a GCF here? That's probably not going to work so well. So if you see something where you've got evens, you're going to have to pull a 2 out, and we know that we're not going to be pulling another 2 out here. So chances are my 2s and 6s are not probably going to work out, okay? So I'm probably going to go ahead and move to a 2 and 3 and give that a whirl. If not, I'll come back up and try the 1s and 6s again. But I really think we probably need to head towards the 2s and 3s. Again, it just comes with practice. Okay? So I've got to put 1y, 2y, and then I'm going to go ahead, again, I need negatives, so I got to pay attention to that. So -2 and -3. I'm going to do the outside, inside. So -3y and a -4y. Well, that's looking pretty dang good. That's getting me to, remember, we're looking for that -7, and that's giving us -7. Okay, so right here, y minus 2 and 2y minus 3 is going to be my factor. All right, let's head over to the next page. Okay, so now on number 5 here, again, GCFs are going to be a lifesaver, so pull out that GCF first. So I'm going to pull out a 3. I get p squared plus 5pr plus 6r squared. And when I pulled out that thing right there, pulled out that GCF, look what happened. I ended up with a 1 in front. Oh my goodness, thank God. That's going to be a lot less work, okay? So now factors of 6 would be 1 and 6, 2 and 3. So what are factors of this that add up to 5? Well, it's kind of looking like 2 and 3, right? So you get to shortcut this one, and you have p plus 2r and p plus 3r, all right? So that GCF just saved us a whole lot of work, okay? All right, let's go to number 6. All right, so there's no GCF on number 6. Okay, now I've got to pay attention to signs here on this one. Okay, so factors would be 1 and 2. Okay, and then we've got 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. Okay, but when I'm looking at this, to get a -9, I know that one of them is going to have to be a negative. I don't know which one. It might be the 1. It might be the 9. It might be one of the 3s. We don't know which one, but we know one of them's got to be negative to get to a -9. Okay? And then if I'm looking here, I want it to add to a -3. Okay? All right. So let me erase that real quick. Oh, never mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and start just writing out our factors. So I've got 1c or c, 2c, and I know one of them's going to be negative and one's going to be positive. All right, and then it's just a matter of putting in numbers until you find something that works. So again, if I kind of put a 1 and a 9 in here and do outside 9c and a -2c, well, that's going to get me 7. So that's not going to work. Okay, so then let's go to the next one here. If I want to flip that, All right, so we're going to keep again the 1c and the 2c in the same spot. And now I'm going to move over and kind of make this a -9 and make this a +1 and just kind of see how it goes. So I start, do the outside, I get 1c, -18c. It's not looking like it's going to get any closer for me. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the 3's and give that a whirl. Okay, so I've got, leave the 1c out front and leave the 2c. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and put just a -3 +3, give it a whirl, and if all else fails, I'll just switch over the negative and positive and give that a try. So, sorry, do your outside and get 3c, and inside, -6c. Oh, that's looking pretty good. That's giving me that -3 I'm looking for. So let's double check the rest of it. So let's do the first. So I've got 2c squared. That's looking good. And then do this guy, and I'm getting a -9. So kind of double check here. Yeah, this is looking pretty dang good because I've got the 2c squared, I've got a -3 in the middle, and I've got a -9. So c -3 and 2c +3 is going to be my final answer. Okay? All right, almost there, guys. All right, so we're going to try this one. All right, so on the front one here, we're going to have a 1 times a 4 and a 2 times a 2. Okay? On this guy, we have 1 times 5. All right, so now we have to get a -3 somewhere. So we know that we're going to have 2 negatives to get a positive for this guy. And then when we add, that'll give us our -3. Okay? So I'm just going to start going through it. Again, 1x and 4x. And I know I'm going to have a -1 and a -5. So again, I'm going to check the middle parts first. So -5x, -4x is not going to get me to a -3. So I'm going to go ahead and just move on. Okay, I'm going to flip-flop. And I'm going to put the 1x and the 4x are going to stay there. I'm going to put the -5 here and the -1. Okay, now when I kind of do that, that's giving me a -1x and -20x. No good. That's not cool. So now we're going to go to the 2's. Okay, so we've already determined that 1 and 4 are not going to work with this. So now we've got to go to the 2's. So I'm going to have 2x and 2x. And I'm going to start with a -1 and -5. So again, outside, inside, -10x, -2x. Well, that's a big bummer. That's not working either. All right, so then we're going to flip-flop one more time here. We've got 2x and 2x, and we're going to switch the -5 and the -1, and let's see if those work. So when we do that, outside gives me -2x. This gives me a -10x. Nothing I'm doing is working. All right. So unfortunately for you guys, once you've gone on through all possible combinations, and there's a lot, okay, and nothing works, you're going to be putting prime down. And it's tough because you have to check every single one before you can put that. All right, last problem. Now, looking back to perfect squares, hopefully you understand why I'm helping you here by telling you take the square root and take the square root because it's way quicker and easier. So remember, you get 7d, 5e, multiply that puppy by 2, it gives me 70, and you go straight to your factors of 7d minus 5e squared. So now I hope you appreciate why I taught you perfect squares first because it was much easier. All right, so go ahead and complete the assignment posted on Schoology, and good luck.